Right, let's move on some more. Back to the airship that can awkwardly fly over some mountains and see where we can go next. I know, we should probably hurry on to the next bit of story progress, but after taking down Odin, I'm feeling confident enough to see if we can take down any other bonus bosses. Now, maybe I should have gone after Leviathan in that lake rather than go after Bahamut, but hey, Bahamut is a pretty familiar foe, and we did nearly die to him earlier in the game. I doubt we're gonna get any payback against him, but at the very least I'd like to see where we stand at this point. Who knows, he might even have a different gimmick than when we fought him in Final Fantasy IV, though I certainly wouldn't be surprised if it was the same, since, well, 4 did come out after this game, after all. The game designers might have felt that there was nothing to fix there, so just kept it as a case of everyone needing Reflect, or they'll be absolutely slaughtered by that damn dragon. Well, no surprise that there are a lot of dragons in Bahamut's cave here. Well, if nothing else, the random encounters in here seem to be a lot less of a pain in the ass than the random encounters in the previous 2 clips. Though maybe it's just a bit premature to say that about the first time we fight against a foe in here. Maybe some of the other monsters in this cave are gonna be more dangerous in their own way than the main boss, but I somehow doubt it. Nope. Still one-sided in our favor to a massive degree compared to the fights we went through in the previous 2 clips, which really says that the road to the previous main storyline boss was just a massive difficulty spike, at least to the team composition I stubbornly want to stick to. Should I bother asking why a liger, something that is a cross between a lion and tiger, lacks the stripes or the mane of either cat? I don't even see the saber-tooth part of that name for that bloody thing. Right, yet another item that I should probably find a moment to sell. I'm sure part of my problem is that I just plain am not using items that I absolutely should be in a game where we have very limited magical charges. Again, the MP system that I'm very familiar with and like to use wasn't implemented until Final Fantasy IV. And while I respect Final Fantasy's roots, and that the charge system this game has is very similar to what Dungeons & Dragons has, that doesn't mean I'm a fan of it. Hell, if I could get away with it, I absolutely would not have any magical characters on a team. It's actually kind of funny how that works, wanting to go to a fantasy world where magic is relatively common, and I'd prefer to be the relatively mundane warrior than someone throwing magic spells. Well, that's a good reason to do a quick save. Also a good time to do some healing before we take on a recurring major enemy in this franchise. And there he is, menacing as hell in the overworld. At least he was kind enough to warn us this time instead of the previous time he pulled us into a nest. Not that this game is getting enough into depth for anything to make it clear if Bahamut is a feral beast or a more intelligent force in the world. I was kind of hoping that Bahamut would throw an attack before Midori's curing spell there landed for some reason. Again, It's kind of rough to do a lot in terms of tactics when you don't know the order of how things will go. Well, we're certainly doing damage. That's gotta mean something. Okay, so lightning didn't do much. The swords did more damage than magic. Right, and here comes the big shot. Okay, that's painful, but survivable. I think we can manage to deal with this by just hearing Curaga on the whole team. And of course he gets his next shot off before Midori can get the healing spell out. Carmine and Brett are down. That kind of ruins our chances of winning this fight. I certainly don't think Azul's gonna be able to land a killing blow, considering how durable Bahamut probably is. Not that we've got any clue how much health Bahamut has left after the sheer pounding he's already taken. Still, I suppose we can certainly try to salvage this situation. Well, at least Carmine is probably gonna survive this shot. Son of a bitch, we aren't even going in the same order from turn to turn. Yeah, I don't need to go all the way to the end of this fight. We know this is done. I cut away several attempts to take the bastard down. No need to watch those, they were all failures. Let's get out of here and get back to working on the main story for a while before trying again. We're definitely pretty capable this far in, that's for sure. Our entire team is level 37 at this point. Generally, when you're ready for the endgame of a Final Fantasy game or similar role-player games, you're somewhere around the mid-40s to early 50s. We're certainly getting to that point, but again, since this game is meant to make you shift and alter your team composition based on what you're dealing with, it's tough to tell just how prepared we really are based on our level. I honestly can't tell if we beat Odin because we leveled up several times, or if it's because I shifted Brett from a black belt to a dark knight. I'm fairly certain that Bahamut is beatable if I just manage to cast Reflect on the entire team at once. We are at the right level to get things done. Should I bother asking why an item called Chocobo's Wrath is described as creating an inferno? Granted, the name doesn't really matter all that much, but it still feels kind of strange to me. Is it because Phoenix Feather is already something that we use to revive people? Right. Let's figure out where to go from here. I know we're supposed to meet up with the two mages that are supposed to be on our side. Dear God, I just cannot get myself invested enough in this game to bother remembering the name of the two very critically important mages. I'm sure the only reason I'll say their names later is because I'll see them on screen. I also can't seem to bother remembering the name of the main villain, someone who is a member of their triumvirate of magic users. I know I was going for a game with a more basic storyline than Final Fantasy IV. This might have been a bit too basic. I know. The three great mages were all students of the same overall overall mage, and that the guy was somehow able to decide what each person was in charge of. And the one who became a villain was given the amazingly stupid reward of mortality. But other than that, there's not much to really say for the overarching story. Okay, I feel like I've made this mistake before. Seriously, most towns we enter by going north, not south. I suppose there's no real harm in getting the summons for the hell of it, at the very least. Yeah, we've definitely got more than enough money at this point to give spells to everyone if we wanted, so I'm not too sure why I'm being so conservative about it. Well, it would be kind of a good idea to have more than one person have the spell reflect, but I just don't like the idea of having more than one character as a singular class if I can get away with it. Ugh. Guess we'll be waiting until we level up enough for our rematch against Bahamut later, or some other way to cast Reflect on a team in a hurry. Right. Need to get there to make the next bit of progress. Hopefully I won't have to go all the way back to the other airship to do so. Okay, so Azul managed to get to level 99 for Black Mages. Probably a bit stupid that I'm thinking of having him change his class simply because he's gotten near the peak of abilities for it. Again, it's not like the game is all that clear what we gain by leveling up the classes. At least Final Fantasy V and the other games that let you change your classes are more explicit what you gain when you get to the maximum level for them. Not that there's all that much to change Azul into, that I'm all that enthusiastic for at any rate. Okay, so if you're a summoner, you need to remove a few conventional spells to allow you to actually send out their summons. I suppose that's kind of acceptable. As a summoner, you're not going to be able to use any black or white magic. The summons completely replace that. I'm pretty sure that in all other games in the series, though, summons are a completely separate class of magic, so things don't get as cluttered in the magic selection screen. Hell, Rydia from Final Fantasy IV explicitly has black magic at the same time she has summon spells. Though for some reason she had to forget the ability to use white magic to do that. Hell, I might have been more willing to use her summons if she kept her white magic and lost the black magic, though. What can I say, with the way MP works in Final Fantasy IV and onwards, it just feels like using black magic is a more efficient option than using summons. That's probably not going to be the case in this game, however. Okay, wasn't expecting them to teleport us further in like that. I guess they're getting pretty damn sick of waiting for us to get where they are. Considering the Cyclops is a Greek monster, these outfits are dressed up in what looks like Genie's outfits. Bit of an interesting choice there, as is the fact that they've got what might be a sword that they haven't drawn out, despite the fact that they're in an active fight. And great. Now I feel like we should have kept Azul as a black mage just because he at least had the bow and arrow then. Not that his arrows are doing all that much compared to Carmine and Brett. Should I bother asking just how far this dungeon is from the other dungeon inside of Doga's mansion? We definitely haven't been this far in before, that's for sure. I suppose the money is appreciated, but again, we're so far into this game that money means little to nothing. Anyway, looks like I gave up on having Azul be an evoker, for whatever that's worth. Not that I bothered to have him do any spells. Ah well, at least switching from one magic class back to another doesn't do anything to our magic points. Or at least nothing as obscene as losing all the point you have, like going from a purely physical class to a magical class might do. That is just... ugh. I'm sorry, but giving an enemy the name of Nemesis feels like something that you should give to a boss, not a random encounter. Should I bother asking why these monsters are pink, have fish qualities in an area that has no water, and have humanoid kneecaps, despite the tendrils are probably meant to make me think of some kind of jellyfish? Well, Brett did more damage to us than the actual enemies there did. I suppose that guy was more than a little annoyed that none of the classes he's been able to switch to remembers that his colors are supposed to be pink. Just like Midori hasn't been able to wear green since starting the game either. Seriously, it's just such a small thing. Why not keep those little bits of personalization for the 4 characters, just in case the player has more than one character as the same class? Well, that fight didn't do as much to us. Okay, so absolutely nothing in this room as far as I can tell. Figured I'd check in case of hidden paths, though. Well, that was certainly pretty durable for something that isn't a boss this far into the game, and giving that dragon the name of Periton gave me the impression that that was supposed to be a one-time encounter, not a random one. Yeah, I just have no clue how to take that fight. Well, if the game isn't going to treat that last fight as anything special, I suppose we shouldn't either. Anyway, let's keep moving on. If nothing else, we're burning through high potions at a faster rate than I was expecting in this dungeon. But then I wasn't really expecting us to be in a brand new dungeon on our way to the 2 major mages. And we're dealing with another Periton. Seriously, the fact that just one dragon, and we have to hit him for so much damage to bring him down alongside the individualized name gives me the impression this thing is supposed to be important. The dragons on the way to Bahamut couldn't take this much abuse. It's kind of feeling almost like we're running across a soldier with the individualized name of Kevin, instead of the generic name of Royal Guardsman or something to that effect. And wonderful. For the sake of giving us more to fight, we're now supposed to kill 2 people who are absolutely supposed to be our allies. This just feels so forced for the sake of drama in a game that doesn't have anywhere near enough character interactions for there to be any kind of drama. Though, I suppose the fact that 2 of the other people we traveled with died kind of makes me feel like this supposedly cheerful game has a bigger casualty count than Final Fantasy IV actually had. Seriously, only one person actually died in that game. At least one named character, who's part of our team, at least. The only two people who followed us in Final Fantasy III who haven't died are Princess Sarah and Cid. Are those two supposed to die before we get to the final dungeon as well? At the very least, I'm seeing some of the signs of the stuff that Final Fantasy IV's story did after this game was already released, so yeah, their brain was going in that general direction. Certainly a bit interesting that our most powerful offensive spells do the exact same amount of damage as our physical attacks. Okay, so less damage than our physical attacks, because for some reason our physical attacks are doing more damage now and I've got no clue why. Wait, lightning does more damage than Quake? What, is Quake just less powerful than I thought it would be? It's not like Doga here is floating or something. If that was the case, then Quake wouldn't have done any damage at all. Anyway, the first of the two great mages certainly didn't last long. Probably because this is two boss fights back to back. You ask if we're ready, but you don't do anything to help us prepare for a second boss fight, like healing us, or restoring whatever magic points we spent taking out your companion, or even just giving us a few seconds to spend potions. There's also no comment on the fact that Une and Doga look very much human outside of fights, but very monstrous when we have to kill them. And since she wants us to win, it feels pretty weird that she bothered to do a defensive spell like Protect on herself. I swear, this just doesn't make too much sense to me. Well, at least these boss fights aren't the kind that require us to have a specific class on our team to get the job done. That's a small mercy. Well, that certainly did a lot of damage. Are Dark Knights weak to Holy, or would all four of our team take an obscene amount of damage from that spell? But either way, there's no getting around the fact that Une is clearly the more dangerous of the two mages. Well, Azul took less damage from that spell, still hit hard despite the fact that I'm sure that a black mage should have some damn solid magical resistances, which again gives me the sense that equipment really doesn't matter as much as it should in this game. Anyway, that's the second boss fight done in a hurry. There is absolutely no way that the third major mage is going to be anywhere near that fragile, not when he's the main boss of the game. Kinda wish I could remember his name, but I'm sure that he's gonna be made of much sterner stuff than this. Well, this is apparently enough to make the final dungeon accessible. At least I assume it's gonna be the final dungeon with the way Doga is talking to us as his body is failing on him. I'm sorry, but it would have made more sense for us to be fighting alongside the two mages as we fight against the third, more powerful, probably, mage. Not for us to kill the two most capable mages on the planet before heading off to fight against the third most capable mage. I know this game isn't trying to do any kind of solid narrative of any kind, but okay. Apparently, Geomancer is not actually a magic-based class despite looking like a black mage. Did I learn about that earlier in the game? Because I feel like I forgot that revelation. Well, that certainly is a pathetic amount of damage from something that's probably meant to be the most capable ability of the Geomancer. Why did it choose to do a tornado in a cave instead of doing something ground-based? Ah well, it seems to be doing a little more damage than the arrows that Azul was shooting earlier. In hindsight, I probably should have started fast-forwarding after taking out those two bosses to make things a bit more simpler, but hey, at least this dungeon wasn't anywhere near as long as the last one we had to deal with. Kinda surprised we didn't see this random encounter more on the way to the bosses. Well, at least Azul and Midori got a few kills in this fight. It wasn't just spread between Brett and Carmine like most random encounters in this game. Well, I'm definitely not a fan of the Geomancer class. We're probably not going to do all that much with the archery-focused class, but hey, really feels like Azul could use a bit more variety considering he spent the vast majority of the game as a black mage. There's literally no way he can level up any further for that particular job, and while I have no clue what that really means in this game, it feels like something I need to at least keep vaguely in mind. Just like I had to keep in mind the fact that we didn't quite manage to explore all the rooms in this dungeon when we finished off the boss. Anyway, the team is at levels 38 and 39 at this point, and I'm not especially comfortable sending them to the final dungeon just yet, so I'm sure we're going to be doing several other things as we can, including trying to fight against Bahamut again, before we try to dive into the final dungeon. All in the name of leveling up, because I'm pretty damn sure we're gonna run into a major difficulty spike. Maybe I'm being paranoid, but considering some of the bullshit this game has thrown at us so far, I would not be surprised if they make the ending dungeon of the game an absolute nightmare. Hell, I've even struggled at points when the game probably wasn't meant to be all that much of a struggle, simply because I stubbornly wanted to have a relatively diverse team of different classes that feels kinda balanced, instead of tailoring things from dungeon to dungeon. I would not be surprised if that mindset turns out to be especially brutal for us as we get ever closer to the credits. Right. Probably a good sign to run away from a fight when one of our team is downed by a random encounter. I'd prefer to feel confident that we can take on all challengers instead of feeling like we need things to go our way if we want to make it through. That might just be wishful thinking in this game, however, especially considering how much raw footage I still see I need to work through before I'm done with this game.